started recording, so the recording is there. There we go. Alrighty, how are things going? On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 is alrighty, there's a poll for you. So something to click on. So how are things going? 1 and 2 okay-ish, 3 great. And great might mean many things. Great might mean that it is, you know, I know where everything is. I'm in my final year. I know what I need to do. Things are okay. I mean, you're not, and I know that some of you might not, you know, you work differently. Some people work every single day or most days on their schoolwork. And others sort of work on it when it comes and goes, you know. And again, that's entirely just how people work. And by this time, I know that you guys have sort of worked on your studies. You kind of know what works, you kind of know what doesn't work. So that's good. Alrighty, I have only received 2 responses. Anybody else wish to respond? I see Carly responded. There we go. There we go. I've got 1 great so far. I've got 4 okay-ish. Anyone else? Anyone else? There's two responses still to come. Yeah. Anyone else? I see there's some more people joining us. Let's wait for them to join us. I see Bootley has joined us. There we go. How are things going? Just check it out on the poll there. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. So most of you seem to say it's going okay, and that might mean different things for different people. So welcome to the session this evening. So as introduction, as I normally do, the first thing I do is I just do a check-in where we are on our roadmap or on our semester plan. And again, this is a recommended plan. It is not, you don't have to stick to it religiously, and many of you don't. This is a guideline. It's a guideline to sort of move you along so that when you open it, you know, okay, I'm working on things, I'm working on this, and I'm working on that. So by this time, you should have done at least 1 or 2 of the ICE tasks. How are you finding those ICE tasks? So please either drop a message in the chat or just switch on your microphone and just tell me how you're finding this ICE task. I never know whether they work or not, but students seem to complete them. So how are you finding them? Please jump in to the conversation. How are you finding those ICE tasks? Okay, yeah, we're here. Might take a bit too long to complete. I don't mark anything longer than a page. If it's longer than a page, 2 pages maybe for the longest, but nothing more than that. I encourage you to use ChatGPT. I encourage you to use AI. It's just about prompting properly, and it's also about acknowledging where you're getting your sources. So it's a combination of a few things. 1 is about acknowledging your sources. 2, it's about prompting you to think through some of those questions. and it's about also using some of the tools that's available out there. So if you're using AI to get the answers, it's about looking at that answer and going, is this the right answer, or is it just a whole bunch of words that doesn't make sense? And that's really what and the reason why I'm encouraging you to use AI is for you to start looking at it a bit more critically rather than just copying and pasting the answers straight from ChatGPT. And I want you to acknowledge that you've used AI as well. So I want you to engage with the technology. So 1 page, 1.5 page for the longest. They're not meant to be onerous. They're not meant for you to sit on it for hours and hours. The flip side of that, as always, there's a flip side with me. The flip side of that is that if you do invest some time in it, if you do spend some time in it, if you add that as part of your preparation for the exam, if you add that as part of your making summaries for your chapters and preparing for studying, so successful studying for the exam lies in the preparation, because preparing for the exam consists of three parts. One is understanding and knowing the work, and the second part is preparing to study. So the preparation is about making the summaries, knowing what to summarize, knowing what is important. And the only way which you know what is important is by focusing on the learning objectives, going through past papers, and then have a good understanding of what is important so you can summarize the correct things, because you cannot and you don't have time to summarize those entire chapters. Those chapters are long. There's lots of content in it. And if you don't have the learning outcomes and past papers and past assessments as a guideline, then you're going to end up with a summary that's 20 pages long and a chapter that's only 40 pages long. That's not a summary. That is just rewriting the chapter in your own words. So it's about making sure, Kayla, I'll answer your question shortly. It's just about making sure that you prepare adequately for the exam, and making sure that you summarize the content and knowing what to summarize. And the third part of studying and preparing for the exam is taking those summaries and then studying the crap out of them and committing them to memory, so that when you sit in the exam, you can answer the question. You get assessed based on your knowledge of the theory and your ability to apply that theory to a given scenario. And that is for third year, that's always going to be the case. You're always going to be tested on your ability to recall the theory and your ability to then apply that theory to a given scenario. So the marks will always be split 50-50, or even a bit less and more. So you might get 40% for the theory, but then 60% for your ability to apply that theory, or even 30% for the theory. So the question would be, here's Pick n Pay, do a Porter's 5 forces analysis on Pick n Pay within its industry. And the theory only accounts for 40% of the mark, and the 60% is your ability to apply that particular theory to that particular scenario. So your iStars can be the gateway to help you and start off that process of preparing for the exam. So look at it in that way. First of all, it is easy marks by doing it 1 page, 1.5 page maximum, spend an hour on it, not more. And the other side of it, you can look at it and go, okay, let me really engage with this iStars, and let me really use this iStars as an opportunity to start summarizing the chapters that I am needing to study for the exam. Kayla asked the question, will you explain what is meant by a written unseen exam? It simply means you're going in to campus and you're going to go and sit in a big room with 100, 200 other people, and you're going to be writing a 2-hour exam. Does that make sense, Kayla? If you have written exams, so it is very much, and we just call it written unseen exam as opposed to a open book seen exam, which is different. All right. And I think all of your exams this year is going to be written unseen. I think there's very few of them that is going to be sort of, except for those that are POE based, which is your research modules, and your WIL module are research based. All right. Are there any other questions before I carry on? All right. So by this time, you're in week 5 already. You should be working on your assignment. You should be sort of have started on your assignment already. Next week, this week, you should have prepared and getting ready. Alexandra, you're asking, the pass says not unseen. It says seen, not unseen, sir. A written seen exam. I have never heard of a written seen exam, Kayla. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, can somebody just copy the pairs into the chat and let me have a look at it? I've never seen a written seen exam. As far as I'm aware, you will be go and write an exam on campus for this particular module. Let me just have a look. I'm having a look at module outline here. Module outline in terms of the assessments. What does it say? What does it say? Assessment, assignment, examination, 2 hours, closed book, learning units 1 to 7. This is what's on the module guide. Does anybody have any information that's different from that? Does anybody have a copy of the PAS? Can you take a picture of that particular line and maybe just paste it in it? So while Kayla is having a look at that, let me just continue with sort of just giving an overview of the planner. So this is sort of kind of where you guys should be at the moment, and starting to work on the assignment as well. Hopefully by the end of the week, I'll know when the national support sessions are going to be. I think it's most probably going to be for assignment 1, it's going to be Wednesday the 24th, or potentially maybe a bit earlier, and then assignment 2 is most probably going to be Wednesday the 8th. Oh, that's close. So maybe it's going to be, I'm not quite sure when assignment 2 is going to be. Most probably going to be Wednesday the 8th. I don't know. I'm checking with Eni. Eni is the lead OT on this module, so we'll know soon. All right. Alrighty, let me go and have a look and just going to see whether I can drop it in here or find it. Assessment error tracker. Sorry guys, I'm just having a look on our. Oh no, I know exactly where this is. It's on our Teams. It's on our Teams channel. Teams, bachelor's, Faculty of Commerce. In fact, please advise the PAS has been released. Let's just have a look. Sorry guys, I'm just having a look here. So we've got Business Management 3, Business Management 3A. Written on campus scene exam. Written on campus exam. Written on campus scene exam. Written on campus scene exam. Written on campus exam. Why the heck? I did not take note of this, so I am going to drop the powers that be a question and just ask what does that mean. All right, thank you very much for bringing it to my attention. As soon as I hear what it's about, then I will let you guys know. Alrighty. Yeah, well, you know, I'm just posting a message here. What is a written on campus scene exam? Alrighty, so as soon as I know what's happening, and then I'll let you guys know. Sorry that we wasted a bit of time on that. So let me move on to the assignment, because I think that is a good place to start tonight, and that is the thing that I want to actually just focus on tonight, is to sort of get you guys to start on what is the Dean's exam. I think, I don't want to, so there's a supplementary and then there's a Dean's exam. I think those, it used to be called the special exam. So special exam are those for those people that needed that applies for it. So maybe you have 1 or 2 modules left over in order to finalize your degree, and then you can apply to write the Dean's exam. So you maybe are unsuccessful with your exam, you're unsuccessful with the supplementary, and then in order to graduate, you need 1 module to graduate. You can then apply for the Dean's exam. Does that make sense? It used to be called a special exam. Alrighty, but none of that won't apply to any one of you. None of you will need to apply for a Dean's exam. Alrighty. Coolio. So let's have a look at the assignment. The assignment is a repeat of last year's assignment. The case study is different, the questions are different, but the format is the same. It's now the 3rd year in a row that we have this particular format, and it's great. It is a fantastic format. It really stretches students to work outside of the comfort zone, and one of the major comfort zones is the word limit. Students struggle with the word limit because they want to say so much. They believe that saying more means you get more marks, and that's not how it works. The ability to be brief, the ability to be concise in your thoughts, the ability to put down just what is absolutely necessary in order to answer the question effectively and to get straight to the point is where the skill lies. The skill does not lie in your ability to write thousands and thousands of words that you get out of your textbook. So that is the challenge, and where the skill of the assignment lies, not in the questions, but in this word limit that so many students struggle with a lot. And some students have even gone so far as to use the word limit as a reason that they got a poor mark. So they say, if only I was allowed to write more, I would have gotten more marks. But that's not how it works. There's a famous saying by Benjamin Franklin when he wrote a letter to his wife in which he needed to write something for her, and he opened it up by saying, "I do apologize for this long letter because I did not have time to be brief." It takes longer to write less than it takes to write. If your word limit was 5,000 words, then no student would have complained that, I can answer all of these questions. But because it's 1,400, which is 1,200 word essay, 1,000, exceed the 1,000, lose all marks allocated to any that fall outside, that fall into the 200 word mark, as an example. So your lecturer will not mark beyond the word count for questions. So this is an example. So what is the word count? The word count is 2,500 words, which excludes the cover plates. It excludes any reference list. It includes appendices. And most importantly, it includes references in your text. Now, I can include those, but you know what? Just excludes the references in your text. So you have to do the word count and then go through your document and go -1, -2, -3, -4. So you can spend the time in doing that, but I promise you, when you've got, say, a reference list of 10 to 15 references that you're going to use inside your text, you are at most going to use those references, including your textbook reference, maybe 20 times or maybe 25 times. So now you're going to go through your entire thing and delete and take out of your total word count 25 words or 30 words for the most. So you can do that. So it excludes the references, but I promise you, excluding the references does not make a huge difference. Cover page, introduction, a clear introduction, 250 words. But again, these are indicative. The total remains. So if you decide to write a shorter introduction of only 150 words, then it doesn't matter. If your conclusion is only 100 words, it doesn't matter as long as the total is not exceeded. So now, most importantly, this is my first, not advice, but my first gentle threat. If you do not include your word count, and I have to copy and paste your entire script into a word counter on the internet in order to determine what your word counts are, I'm going to deduct marks. So do the right thing by just including your word count at the end of your submission. All right. Okay. Can I have a thumbs up from all of you, just to make sure that you guys understand the format as well as the word count requirement for your report? Okay. Good. Thank you. Excellent. Great. Thank you, Stephanie. All right. So what is this report all about? And why do they say it's a report? So if you read the bits that's before this on the assignment, it talks about you being a consultant and all of that type of stuff. But I want you to approach it. So it's always that balance. Some students write it and they format it like this management consultant with pictures and all kinds of special formatting. And I want you to just write it as a simple essay, an academic essay that you have. All right. A simple, straightforward academic essay, Arial 12, 1.5 spacing, normal margins, Harvard referencing, and that's how you write it. So I know students sometimes they send me an example of the reports. They say, okay, so must I write it in this format, or is this the format that I need to write the report in? I want you to approach it as a simple academic report. Nothing more, nothing less. You don't need fancy formatting. The less formatting you have, the better. All right. Great. So let's have a look at question 1. Let's have a look at question 1. So Lowenfenter state that strategy explained as an action or a set of activities that a company takes to improve its performance and gain sustainable long-term competitive advantage over rivals in a market. Discuss where the Oryx salt, which is your case study, followed an intended, deliberate, emergent, or realized strategy. So it gives you 4 options. And in your discussion, also provide practical examples of how Oryx salt can use the 5 Ps to develop future strategies. Your answer should contain the following points. Distinguish between them, those 4. Determine which strategy Oryx salt is using in their business venture. Provide introduction of each of the 5 Ps. And provide practical examples of how Oryx salt can utilize the 5 Ps in order to develop future strategies. Now, when they say determine which strategy Oryx salt is using, that is not correct. Because in second semester, you're going to learn the actual strategies. The first semester, you don't learn actual strategies. We don't teach you actual strategies. The second semester, we teach you all of them. We teach you low cost, differentiation, innovation strategies. We teach you strategies for global competitiveness. We teach you corporate level strategies. We teach, you've got 4 chapters of just the different strategies which you can use to execute and achieve sustainable long-term advantage. The first chapter on which this question is based on asks really the question, how did Oryx salt's strategy come to be? Was it an intended strategy? Was it a deliberate strategy? Did the strategy emerge, or did it realize sort of through external and internal capabilities and resources that they had? And when they say determine which strategy Oryx salt is using, they're essentially asking, how did their strategy, which you're not going to comment on, how did the strategy that they have, how did they come about this strategy? Was it intended? Was it deliberate? Was it emergent? Was it realized? So that's really what the question is asking you. And then moving on to the third part, which is the 5 Ps. So it's Mintzberg's 5 Ps. And the Mintzberg's 5 Ps deals with how companies approach strategies. Some companies approach strategies as a ploy. Some companies approach strategies in a different way. The 5 Ps, does anybody know what the 5 Ps are? Can anybody jump in and tell me what is Mintzberg's 5 Ps of strategy? Anyone? Pattern. Ploy, pattern, position. One more. Perspective, absolutely. And when, so the first part of the question deals with how did they come about the strategy? How did the strategy happen for Oryx? And then the second part of the question says, so if it was intended, was it based on Mintzberg's 5 Ps? Was it planned? If it's emergent, it most probably wasn't planned. Was it realized? Was it deliberate? If it was deliberate, it most probably was planned. So Mintzberg's 5 Ps deals with the approach that the company has towards developing their strategy. They can either have an intentional plan, so that they sit down, they analyze the external environment, they analyze the internal environment, say, okay, this is what our strategy is going to be. So it's an intentional plan. If it was realized, it could be a pattern. So it is, last year we did this, and this year we did this, and 2 previous years we did this. So most probably this would be the best way of doing it, because these are the market forces. It could be a ploy, which means there's a competitor. So let's have this short-term tactic that might give us a nominal advantage in the marketplace and within the industry. So no problem, Ethan. So that's really what the question is asking. And then right at the end, it finishes off with provide practical examples on how Orexcel can utilize the 5 Ps in order to develop future strategies. So it's not asking you for a strategy. It's just saying, okay, so now that you've explained what the 5 Ps are, and you've maybe even commented on which likely P Oryx employs. So now give us some examples of if Oryx uses strategy, or if Oryx approaches strategy as a plan, then it would be, here's an example of how that plan would look like, of how they would go about planning their strategy. So again, it's not asking a strategy. So I don't want to see in this answer, I don't want to see you talking about, oh, they need to increase the price, or they need to change the brand, or they need to look at this differentiation in a market, or they need to look at this market segment. None of that. This is all about how did the strategy come about? How do they approach the strategy using the Mintzberg's 5 Ps framework? And then right at the end, it asks you, so you've explained Mintzberg a bit. You commented a bit about how Oryx might have approached their strategy. So going forward, using the Mintzberg's framework, how would you suggest Oryx uses the framework to develop their future strategies? So he'll say, according to Mintzberg's plan, if a company approaches their strategy as a plan, then it would look like this. Example, Oryx would then approach the strategy in this way. If it's a ploy, Oryx would most probably approach it in this way. Or a pattern, here's an example of what a pattern, an approach to strategy as a pattern would look like. Does all of that make sense? It's quite a significant question. It counts for 30 marks, so that's a third of the overall mark. But the way it's laid out and the requirements of the question is, I think, I don't want to say straightforward, but it's very clear. These are the 4 parts of the question. In terms of layout and flow, I entirely am comfortable with you starting a page with question 1 at the top, and then you can have a subtitle called something like Oryx's approach strategy, and then you can say the third one would be this is how they would use it, or come up with 4 different subtitles, or you can just use your writing skills and just introduce each section in a separate paragraph or 2 or 3 paragraphs. And you can, and this is where great writing comes in, where you have the ability to link paragraphs together, to end off one paragraph with, and that is how Mintzberg describes patterns as an approach to strategy. Oryx Salt use or approach to strategy in terms of a pattern would most probably look like this, or can possibly look like this, etc., etc. And that is how you link your paragraphs together where one flows into the other. When somebody should read this, they should look at it and go, okay, so Oryx actually don't know what they're doing. So most of the time it sort of just happens. So it's mostly realized. Okay, this man's book dude is quite interesting. That's cool. Oh, okay. So if Oryx starts getting their act together, they can most probably approach strategy as a plan and have it become more intended as opposed to the way it currently is. You know, that's kind of how when you read through it, you should sort of come to that conclusion. If you give it to somebody in your household, if you give it to your partner, if you give it to a boss, if you give it to somebody, and they read through it, they should read at the end of the question, they should answer, oh, okay, so Oryx, I know what intended is now, I know what deliberate, emergent, and realized are, and Oryx definitely, they are more of an emergent type of place. Oh, these 5 Ps are interesting. Oh, okay, now I see the connection, 5 Ps and the different approaches to strategy. And oh, okay, so Oryx Salt is mostly, plan, you say. Okay, definitely. Somebody that hasn't read the content and somebody that hasn't read anything about strategy should be able to read through your answer and have a clear idea what Oryx Salt should do. They should have a clear idea what the 5 Ps are. They should know the difference between intended, deliberate, emergent, and realized strategies. And they should sort of know why you say Oryx is following the particular one. And then they should have a clear understanding at the end of it. Okay, if Oryx has been doing this, then this is what they should be doing going forward. All right, let me pause there. Any questions on or any comments on question 1? I see there's been some comments. Titles count in the word count. Kayla, this is a different difficult one. It generally doesn't count, but for me, the titles, the subtitles, are just ways of being able to distinguish different sections of an answer. So for me, that would be fine. But obviously, if you're using a whole sentence as a title, then it shouldn't really be. You should, you should look at that. But listen, guys, I know I gave a gentle thread earlier about word count, but if you're over by, if it's 2,550, I'm not going to penalize you. 2,526, I'm not going to penalize you. But if you're doing 2,750, then absolutely. So 100 words over is, I'm comfortable with that. Anything more than that, then obviously now you need to look at where you can reduce your word count. But if it's 2,505, 2,515, or 20, or 30, 2,550 would be my maximum there, where I would be looking at and going, okay, no, anything more than this would be a problem. All right. Good. Any questions or comments on question 1? I'll give you a moment. If you should start tonight, will you be comfortable with being able to at least put theory down before you start writing? Remember, you start off with a 7,000 word essay or 7,000 word report, and then you start reducing down to a third of that. Good. Question 2. Let's have a look. Our social investment aim is to spread our supportive net wide to contribute to where we can local communities through encouraging care and for living earth. We harvest our salt from Kalahari Desert, and perhaps our most poignant responsibility is design communities from the Kalahari Desert. Okay. Is there anything on the environment questions? That's a bit of a hint there. All right. The process of strategy making is highlighted by Lone Venter. The first step is to recognize organization part of a nested system. That's a nice concept. Nested system. The concepts of shared value and inclusive business. Shared value. Inclusive business provides several opportunities to organizations and their stakeholders to evaluate the extent which Oryx Salt is implementing concepts for shared value and inclusive business in organizational context. All right. I am only going to do this question, and then we can call it a night. And our next session, I will then go over the mission statement as well. Although the mission statement question is fairly straightforward. Okay. Let me skip forward. Let me skip forward the mission statement question quickly. It is a straightforward question. Out of all three questions, this one is the most straightforward. All right. Brief introduction of the purpose of a mission statement. Can I please have a page number as to where to find the purpose of mission statement? I can give you a hint. It is in chapter 3. Quick. Analyze Oryx Salt's mission statement by applying the questions that should be answered by a typical mission statement. So what are the where can you find those questions? So this is on page 86. I'll put a little question mark there because Kayla is saying she thinks. And then where are the questions? 76 to 96 is the chapter. Yes, I need a page number for the 6 questions. Page number for the 6 questions. Recommend valid changes can make to the mission statement to make a more comprehensive, and then create a new mission statement. So this is, as I said, is the more straightforward question out of the 3, and it is literally this is the theory. This is how I analyze the mission statement. So how do you go about analyzing the mission statement? So there are six questions that every mission statement needs to answer. So you will give me for each one of the 6 questions, you'll say, according to Lone Venter, the first question that any mission statement should answer is this, When looking at Oryx Salt's mission statement, these words, quote unquote, and you'll take a portion out of the mission statement, aims to answer this particular part of the mission statement. Done. And then the next one, Lone Venter talks about mission statements, and they say that the second question a mission statement should answer, it should be this and this. Looking at the mission statement of Oryx Salt, there is no evidence of it answering this particular question in any way. Done. The third question, etc., and that is what I'm looking for. So very straightforward, sort of working through it in a very methodical way. This is the purpose of a mission statement. You can bring in some additional research here. That'd be great. You can then look at each of the questions one after the other. You can pull phrases out of the mission statement if they apply. If there is no phrase in the mission statement or word or anything in the mission statement that supports a specific question, you'll say so. Because guess what? In the next part of the question, you will then add that. So you can answer these 2 questions together. And that is what I would recommend. So you'll say that the first question that Lone Venter highlights that any mission statement of any company should answer is this and this. Within there is none. It's not evident in the mission statement in any phrase or word that it answers this particular question. I would include something that would speak to the environment, or would speak to stakeholders, or would speak to this, or would speak to that, or would speak to the business that we're in, or would speak to the reason for our existence, etc. And then, based on all those little lines of recommended bits and pieces that you've put in when you answered this question, as you work through the 6 questions, do I have a page number for the 6 questions yet? Please, anyone? you then pull all of those comments together into the new mission statement. So end of that section, it'll say, based on this analysis of Oryx Salt's mission statement, here with or below would be a mission statement that would answer all of the major 6 questions, or all of the parts, or that Oryx Salt for Oryx Salt. All right. However, so that's interesting. So you can leave it there. But this is where the critical thinking comes in. You can also look at it and go, okay, so I've now created a new mission statement, but now the mission statement is like 3 sentences long. I mean, really? And one of the purpose of a mission statement is that everyone in the company should be able to clearly identify the mission statement. So yes, I can use Low and Fender 6 questions. I can analyze mission. I can recommend a new mission statement that will be a whole paragraph long, that will analyze and will apply all of the key points that a good mission statement will have, good, quote unquote. But maybe less is more. Maybe what they've done is they've distilled the essence of what the company is and where the company is going, its mission, its very essence of what it is, into that one sentence. And maybe that's more powerful than a paragraph long mission statement that the entire organization might not remember. And that's the dichotomy, that's the tension that I want to see in your answer. If I don't see that, you're going to get 16, 17 out of 30. If I see that tension, if I see you grapple with that, that means that you're thinking through not just the theory and how to apply the theory, but also about this business, what this small business is all about, what the small business stands for, who the small business is, what the brand is all about. Make sense? Yes? No? Great. So, back to question 2. Shared value and inclusive business. This is a interesting one. And this is the question where I'm going to need and I want from you a lot more critical thinking, a lot more sort of tension, a lot more sort of arguments and counter arguments and working through it. Because it is not a simple question and it's not a simple thing to answer, especially within our context, within the context of South Africa, within the context of where we're finding ourselves based on our history, but also this very interesting product that they're selling out of an area where there's a people that has largely been overlooked in the new South Africa, a forgotten people, a forgotten part of the country in the Northern Cape. How, when you talk about shared value, what does it mean for this community to extract something from this place and then add value to it through additive processes and then selling it for margin? What are they getting out of it? So it is a loaded question that has so many different layers, and I want you to approach it that way. I want you to approach it with respect. I want you to look at the question and go, okay, this is more than just a question. How do I approach this? So I've given you a great article by Porter and Kramer where they introduce us this concept of shared value, inclusive business. You must read that article. It's required reading for this assignment. And then make sure that you understand those concepts. Provide a brief introduction to the purpose of shared value and inclusive business. Discuss, and then not just an introduction, but also the counter arguments to that. Please, also the counter arguments to that. Discuss how Oryx utilizes shared value inclusive business to embed context into their strategy. And this is interesting because there's a lot more happening. Evaluate the extent to which Oryx Salt is implementing the concept of shared value and inclusive business, and also criticize them if they're not, because based on my bit of research, there's a lot of talk, but there might not be a lot of do. And then the question is, how do you measure it? What are the criteria that you use to measure it? Is it enough just to have it on your website? What are the real tangible benefits? What are the real tangible things that benefits the community? Propose additional ways in which Oryx Salt can improve on their approach to inclusive business and shared value. This is the crux of it. This question lies in that place where there's so much tension, because here's a small business with a great brand that has developed a niche in the market. They're not a big business. They're not Old Mutual. They're not a big Anglo American. They're not one of those. The question is, should they be required to even think about inclusive business and shared value? So I'll give you a great example of how two retailers look at inclusive business and shared value, and their sort of ethical and moral obligation to the citizens of South Africa. Shoprite versus Pick n Pay / Woolworths. So let me use Woolworths as an example. You look, and this is the Shoprite Checkers group, which includes Checkers and everything. When you open up the integrated report for Woolworths, it's normally in green. There's lots of plants. They spend a lot of time talking about how they care for the environment. They spend a lot of time talking to you about how they invest in communities and how they invest in uplifting South Africa through ethical and farming practices, etc., and how they develop their suppliers and so forth and so forth. Great. That is how they communicate this idea of how they embed context of shared value and inclusive business within their strategy. Juxtapose that to Shoprite, which looks at it from a completely different perspective. So Shoprite is absolutely clear. They say that we are the biggest employer in South Africa. We employ more people. We operate in different contexts, in different places. Through our growth and development as a retail chain, we create economic development. And through that economic development, whether building the stores, whether employing people that works in the stores, through that, we create shared value and create an inclusive business. Yes, we also do some of the other stuff. We're also a bit more green. We try to get off the grid. Clean energy, all of those things. But our main thrust of our shared value is that we create economic activity which drives employment, and through increased employment, we give people dignity, we give people employment, and those very same people then become customers of ours as well. Two very different ways in which they approach inclusive business and shared value. The one says, and then Shoprite goes even further. The way we meet our obligation as a retailer within the context of South Africa is through making sure that prices are low for the basic foodstuffs so that those that can't afford to eat on a day-to-day basis have at least enough money to buy enough for a meal. They've got all these specials. They talk about a 10 Rand meal. They talk about 15 Rand, keeping the price of bread low, etc., and so forth. So two very different approaches to inclusive business and shared value, and two very interesting ones. And the reason why I'm giving you those two examples is I want you to think and look at Oryx as a business and go and really question whether it's something that they should even be thinking about. Is it something that should really be important to them? Is it something that they really should be, should have to tell their customers and investors, So that's what I'm looking for this particular question. So we've gone through question 1, we've gone through 2, we've gone through 3. I hope that. So we've gone through question 1, we've gone through 2, we've gone through 3. I hope that my sort of breakdown of the questions will give you a starting point. 2 weeks from now, I might not be online. I might only do a recording, and I will work through these questions again in preparation for you to work on them. So between now and our session in 2 weeks' time, please start on the assignment. Get going with it, even if you just put the theory down, even if you just put the structure down, and then you can start refining it. And then in 2 weeks' time, I will most probably leave you with I'll leave you with a recording that you can sort of review and then see if you're on the right track. All right. Any questions before we sign off for the evening? All right. Thank you, Chloe. Awesome. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody that took the time to log in this evening. Have a wonderful evening and good luck with the assignment. And also for those that are doing research, good luck with that. For those that are doing, what else is there? There's research, there is supply chain, is it, I think, or is it supply chain or risk? Risk, oh my word, good luck with risk. And then, so you've got business management, risk, and you've got research, and you've got, what else? Have you got a fourth? No, you don't have a fourth, you only got 3, hey? Entrepreneurship, okay, Untrip for some that has, so some of you guys on Untrip, okay, good. Oh, all right, okay, awesome, no problem. All right, guys, have a wonderful evening, and I will connect with you online. Keep an eye out for the recording in 2 weeks' time, and good luck with the assignment. All righty, cheers, bye.